Hi, all. It's Jan of the Jan Files. I hope you will support me on YouTube because I want to build my audience so that I can go live. So I need your help to do that. Now, I want to talk about the Iran war today and then Epstein. First, there were two attacks today in the United States. Certainly, both look as if, I'm not confirming anything, obviously. I don't have that power, but there was a shooting where one person died at Old Dominion in Virginia. The attacker has links to ISIS. He is dead. Two other people at this point have survived. I gather they're being shot. And then there was another attack on a synagogue in Michigan where nobody was hurt, but the attacker had bombs in his car. He too is dead. So he had explosive devices and he was attacking a synagogue. So in my estimation, and this is obviously what we can expect, and it should have anticipated when we made a decision to do what we did. Now, I don't believe, based on several factors, that this is going to last long. And the reason when I say this, I mean the Iran war. The reason I don't think this is going to last long is because Donald Trump doesn't like to lose. And he is losing, and he's losing bigly. And why do I say that? Well, a couple things. First of all, there is going to be no regime change. That is clear. He foolishly thought that this was going to be another Venezuela and that he was going to be another, kinged again by his getting rid of Iran. That's not happening. And now already Bibi is saying that hemming and hawing about a regime change in a press conference he held, saying that he hoped to provide, I don't know what word he used, space, clear the playing field so that the Iranian people could rise up. The likelihood is that the protests that were happening before we attacked are dead, are gone. That they're not going to come back to life anytime soon. Why? Well, because first of all, they too, all those protesters are being terrorized. And the likelihood is that because a lot of those protests happen in Tehran, we are carpet bombing Tehran. Yeah, you heard me right, carpet bombing. So we're just blowing up the city with no regard for civilians. Obviously, we don't have any regard for civilians based on the killing of, 165 plus people at the school in Minab. So why, what else is happening that, Donald Trump is going to see this as a failure? First of all, the Iranians are no joke. What he thought what capacity they had to retaliate. Obviously, he was not informed, or they didn't even bother to do their homework, which it seems like the second is more likely. They didn't bother to do their homework because Iran has 90 million people, folks, and many of them support the Ayatollah. Now, obviously, there are those that don't, but we didn't give them a pathway. We basically destroyed any hope they might have of change in the near future. So there's going to be no regime change. The oil prices are well over $100 a barrel and climbing, and will continue to climb as long as the Strait of Hormuz is closed. And they have zero intention of opening up that. And what will that mean? A global meltdown economically. And Trump will be responsible for that, as he is responsible for the stock market crashing. He doesn't like those things, folks. Those things bother him, and they're also one of the few things that he will get pushback from his staff, the people around him, that will say, whoops, all of our wealthy buddies are getting fucked, so you better do something to not impact the stock market so much. But there is really little he can do unless he ends this war and people understand that they're going to be able to ship oil and gas to the people that need it. And I don't think that they're going to put boots on the ground, because Trump may lie about his poll numbers, but I'm sure 70% of the Americans that are saying we don't want you to put boots on the ground is meaningful to people around him. Because the other part of this is that they all understand. Maybe they didn't before, I don't know why, well, they're a bunch of fools, is that this is going to doubly impact the midterms because of what it is doing to Americans. Not only are we paying higher gas prices, but more importantly, first let's start with the most important thing. We're losing American lives for nothing. And that does not mean that these people died for nothing. It means that they defended this country and they should be honored and respected despite why we went to war. But we're losing more people than they're telling us. There are more people injured than they're telling us. And that will all come out, folks. And that will not also make Trump happy. And he can try to, dance to the YMCA and everything else he's doing, including, actually, I don't know if you saw this today, but he's put out videos, animated videos, like war games, like it's a game. It's disgusting. And both sides of the aisle supposedly are saying, what the fuck did you just do? The disrespect to our service members is incredibly awful. So my opinion, and I want to just check my little list here, is that he's going to find some way to position this, which he always does, as if this was a good move, but now's the time to end it. That's what he's going to do. He's going to say, we accomplished this and that. I anticipate that in time, the protesters will be able to take over because of the damage we've done. They will not be able to go into and get uranium from, which is one of the things they were saying, their stockpile, unless we put boots on the ground. I don't think that's going to happen. And so what they're going to say is something like, we absolutely ended their nuclear capability and they will not get long-range missiles, neither of which they had the capacity to do when we bombed them. So that's my take, folks. I think that this is going to go away sooner rather than later because it's such a phenomenal failure. And because he's put Americans in harm's way, including, obviously, now we're having terrorist attacks on the ground. And I've seen a lot of people who support Israel loving that we went in. Are you going to love it when people come and attack synagogues and colleges and other places? When ISIS comes in and these sleeper cells awaken because they've been told to, and they kill Americans? Does that make you feel good? You think that's good for Israel? I don't think that's good for Israel. I don't think anything that has happened has been good for Israel. I think Bibi Netanyahu got, a dream came true for him. But there is nothing here that is good for Israel or good for us or good for the Middle East. So, and I will also say, I think there were Middle Eastern countries that were encouraging Trump to do this because they wanted Iran out of the way too. It's just a clusterfuck, and it's not going to get better. And there's no move we can make that's going to make it get better unless we figure out a way to leave as gracefully as we possibly can. So that's my take on Iran. Now, Epstein. So what we learned was that in 2019, I want to get this right. So New Mexico investigators in 2019 were told to stop, to not do anything with the Zorro Ranch. In 2019, Trump was president and Barr was the AG. So we know now who to ask why this was stopped. Right? We know they should recall Barr and find out why he stopped this investigation, because nothing like this would have happened without his knowledge. Absolutely not. Just no. So that's one of the things that has come to light. The other thing that has come to light is that Richard Kahn, who was Epstein's accountant since 2005, testified yesterday. And he testified to a lot of things. He said that Epstein talked about Trump all the time. He said that he didn't know. He didn't know what Epstein was doing. So let's go back. 2005. 2005 was before Epstein was charged in Florida by Miami-Dade. Palm Beach. He was charged and he made a plea deal, etc. He went to jail for 13 months. Jail is, only, the elites call it jail when he can literally go out and work during most of his day. And he also had the opportunity to fly to New York while he was supposedly in custody. But during those 13 months, he could go to work. This was like a joke of a sentence. And so how did his accountant, Richard Kahn, not know where he was for 13 months and why he was there? There were also hold on, I'll give you the settlement. There was a settlement made in 2009 to Virginia Giuffre. There was also another settlement in 2017 for $5.5 million, and another one in 2018 to Bradley Edwards. Now, Bradley Edwards represented many of the girls and women who were abused, and he came up, had a deal with Epstein, and Epstein paid. I'm not sure that we know exactly how much that settlement was. But this accountant sitting there saying he didn't know anything about what Epstein was doing, I call bullshit. I hope that, and because we don't have the transcripts, I hope we get the transcripts, because I'd like to see the questions that were asked of him after he said he didn't know what was going on. He did things such as pretend he was Epstein so he could deal directly with the banks. Does this sound like a guy who didn't know what was going on? So, and then the other thing I want to say is that Comer comes out and says that another witness has said that Epstein didn't impugn Donald Trump. That this guy said, never heard anything about that kind of behavior with Donald Trump. I'm just paraphrasing all this, folks, so you get the idea. He said that Trump didn't know of any wrongdoing by Trump. And Jane Comer comes out and, touts that as proof, once again, that Trump is innocent. It proves nothing. It proves that the man wants to stay alive, is what it proves. Because if anybody thinks they're going to testify against Trump and not have protection afterwards, they're nuts. Because we know what happens to people who tattle. And so I call bullshit the fact that Comer says, the same thing like Nancy May says and all these other bimbos, is that, the survivors has said that Trump didn't do anything. She spoke what? To 10 survivors out of 1,200? So, I still think that this is moving forward in the right direction, albeit very fucking slowly. So that's my take on what's happening. Stay tuned for more. And I'm also going to try, because some people have been asking me, like, who are you? What do you do? Etc. like that. So I'm going to make a very short video, probably just post it on YouTube so you can find it there, just to say a little bit about who I am. Take care. Stay safe. And boy, the midterms can't come soon enough, but we have a lot of work to do before then. Take care. Bye.